And by the way, good evening. My name's Tom Oth. I'm the chairperson of the Scio ZBA. Before we actually start, for any persons who are going to be saying anything on the record, we're going to need a little information from you, which Bob Walsh, the secretary, will take from you. So, Bob, why don't you go ahead and do that?
So, Mr. Weinstein, you're the petitioner.
Up, your audio is a little down.
Sorry about that. My internet connection's been spotty today. I need the address and phone number for the petitioner. I think that's Mr. Weinstein.
The address is 523 Lakeview Avenue, Ann Arbor, Michigan 48103. And the telephone number is 954-242-2903.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who will be talking on the record today so that you can, okay, we've got two more people, Bob. Three more people, Bob.
All right. Ms. Furtado, we'll start with you.
I am Carol Furtado. I live at 505 Lakeview Avenue, Ann Arbor, Michigan. My phone number is 734-358-2409.
Going around, Ms. Greenspoon.
My name is Bonnie Greenspoon, and I am the architect, and my business address is 440 South Main Street, Ann Arbor, 48104, and phone number 734-786-3757.
Great, thank you. Down in the lower left, go ahead, sir.
Mike B.
Hi, my name is Michael Boylan, B-O-Y-L-A-N. My mailing address is 1331 Alicia, A-L-I-C-I-A Court. That's in Royal Oak, Michigan. My telephone number for this purpose is 513-703-3151.
Great. Is there anyone else who will be speaking at the meeting on the record other than those people? Anyone else? Not that we'll prohibit you from doing it if necessary, but we've got to stop the meeting and get that information from you before we can permit you to speak. So I'd just soon do it beforehand. Anyone else? Okay. Well, Laura, why don't we turn on the recording and we can start the meeting.
Recording in progress.
We're now recording.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is the Scio Township Zoning Board of Appeals regular meeting for June 17th, 2021. My name is Thomas Oth, a person of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the first item of the agenda today is the call to order. Mr. Walsh, would you be so kind as to take care of that?
All right, do the roll call.
Please. Here.
I think you have to do where you are, county and state.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thomas Oth, appearing remotely from Scio Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Culbertson.
Here, Scio Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Ramey. You're on mute.
I'm here in Scio Township, Washtenaw County.
Walsh, also in Scio Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan. Shields.
Here, also from Scio Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Okay, very good. Good evening to everybody. At this point, I would ask for a motion to adopt the agenda or a motion to add to the agenda.
So move the adoption of the agenda.
Second.
Support.
All right, moved by Ms. Culbertson, supported by Mr. Walsh to adopt the agenda. Any discussion? So, Mr. Walsh, will you call the roll on that motion?
Bob,
Yes.
Culbertson,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes.
Walsh, yes. Shield,
Yes.
Very good. The next item on the agenda is the swearing in of witnesses. So I would ask all those people who intend to speak tonight at the meeting to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I solemnly swear to tell the truth and the whole truth.
I do.
You know, just repeat that, Mr. Boylan.
I do.
I solemnly swear.
Oh, I solemnly swear that my testimony be the truth, the whole truth.
Good. Everyone else, would you please do so? We can do it all at once. Ms. Greenspoon, you are on mute. Mr. Weinstein, you're on mute.
I solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Ms. Furtado?
I solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Very good. Ms. Greenspoon?
I solemnly swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is communications or correspondence. We have lengthy correspondence from Ms. Furtado, which is part of our packet. Do we have someone checking in? Wait a minute, what happened to Laura? Is that Laura? Are you here?
Yes, there is more people coming into the meeting, so I'm admitting them as they arrive.
All right. Do any of the people who were just admitted to the meeting, all of whom are on mute, by the way, do you intend to speak at the meeting? If so, I need to swear you in. Please let me know now. Okay, I see nothing indicating that there will be anyone wishing to speak. And everyone's still on mute, so I'm going to make that assumption. We'll move along. We have extensive correspondence from Ms. Furtado, which is part of our packet and is part of the record already. So I won't bother to go into it at this point. We'll do it when we get to that point in the agenda. I don't have any other correspondence. Do any of the other board members have anything?
there were other notes included in the packet. One from Maria and Patrick Smith.
Yes.
One
Yeah.
from Stafford and
Yeah. I should have expanded my comment to include all the correspondence which we received from neighbors, it appears. Although one of them is a real estate agent whose address is unknown to me, other than a work address or a work identification. I don't know where she actually resides on the street in question, but we'll get to all of that correspondence when we get to the public hearing. Any other correspondence from any other source? Ms. Culbertson, Mr. Shields, Ms. Ramey?
No.
Okay. Then at this point, we'll open the meeting to public comment. At this point, citizens wishing to address the Zoning Board of Appeals on matters which are not on the public hearing portion of the agenda or seek information on any other matters. Such oral presentation shall be limited to 3 minutes, except a representative or spokesperson of an organization shall have 5 minutes to address the board. Are there any citizens wishing to make any public comment? Please let us know now. Anyone? Anyone? Okay, everyone that I see is still muted, and no indication that there's any one desiring to make any public comment. So the next item on the agenda is public hearing, and the public hearing is on variance number 21002, Alexander Weinstein by Louis Greenspoon Architects regarding property code number H-08-08-25-325-002, 523 Lakeview Avenue, request to allow for a 9-foot side setback rather than the required 15-foot setback. Variance is requested to allow a garage/home office. We'll open the public hearing in just a moment, but let me go through the procedure for public hearings of the Zoning Board of Appeals. After the chairperson, which is myself, opens the public hearing by announcing the subject of the appeal and opening it, the chairperson will summarize the procedures and rules to be followed during the hearing, which is what I'm doing right now. I will call upon the petitioner or his or her representative to present their statements in support of the appeal along with any supporting evidence. Following that, the petitioner, his agent, or attorney may present his case, including presenting witnesses on his or her behalf. Members of the ZBA then shall report on any site inspection and on any conversations with the petitioner that may have occurred. Next order of business in the public hearing is that members of the public who support the petitioner speak and correspondence is read. After that, members of the public who oppose the petitioner speak and correspondence is read. At that point, the chairperson may permit the petitioner a rebuttal within limits set by the chairperson, at which time the chairperson will, upon the chairperson's motion, which I don't think that'll happen, because normally we don't make motions, or upon the motion, ZBA member announced the close of the public hearing, continuation of the public hearing to another specified date and time. After that, the zoning board members shall deliberate the request and decide the issues, or may postpone to a future meeting if a decision is not reached tonight. That's the general nature of the public hearings. So without further ado, in the public hearing, number 21002 is previously described, seeking a setback variance. So who will be initially speaking on behalf of the petitioner? Ms. Greenspoon, very good. You may go ahead and make your statements in support of the appeal along with any evidence.
Thank you. I'm assuming everyone can hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, good.
But I'm the only one that makes a difference, but
for the record. My name is Bonnie Greenspoon. I'm an architect and principal of Louis Greenspoon Architects. We are requesting a setback variance, for the addition at 523 Lakeview Avenue. The characteristics of this property create 4 hardships, making it quite difficult to build a 2-car garage. I would like to point out that it would not be unusual for a house of this size to have a 2-car garage, and that these hardships have been also identified by Carlisle Wortman, the engineers for Scio Township. And I can go through those hardships, but I would rather not take the time, assuming everyone's read through the agenda packet.
Well, for the purpose of the meeting, however, there may be people listening who have not had the opportunity
And
to
that's
pack.
fine.
So I would suggest that you do so on the record.
I'm happy to do so. I just wasn't sure if my time was limited, so I just didn't want to take up too much time. However,
we'll give you plenty of time this week.
Thank you.
Not a problem. May I interrupt for one other thing? Because we've been doing this with all of the recent hearings, because it appears that occasionally we have unidentified ownership interests. Is Mr. Alex Weinstein the only person who is the property owner or has an interest in this property?
I am.
Okay. There are no other corporations, nobody else having an interest, Mr. Weinstein?
No.
Thank you. Ms. Greenspoon, I apologize. Go ahead and continue.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Thank you. So, hardship number one. The width of the property is 8 feet narrower than zoning dictates, which is a legal non-conforming condition. The properties of this zone are intended to be 100 feet wide. This property is only 92 feet wide. Therefore, in order to build the 2-car garage, we will be encroaching within the 15-foot side yard setback. Had this property been 8 feet wider, we would not be sitting here this evening. The area of the property is 6,000 square feet smaller than the zoning ordinance dictates, reducing the buildable area of the property. That's hardship number 2. Hardship number 3 is the grading of the property is quite steep and varied. And this happens to be one of the only properties that has such steep grading. It is at the end of the street as it slopes down towards the sister lake, and there is at least a 10-foot difference from the south side of the property sloping down towards the north side. The other hardship is the location of the septic field, which the septic field is located along the southern edge of the property in the southeast corner of the backyard, which would prevent us from building in that location. By locating the garage attached to the house, this allows us direct access from the existing living room to the new office space, which is located above the proposed 2-car garage. If the addition were detached from the existing house, we would need to put a stair within the addition, which would cause the building footprint to be larger. A larger footprint would increase the impermeable surface of the roof, the impermeable surface area of the addition, and it would require, if the proposed garage addition were located further into the backyard, it would require the driveway to be longer, which would also increase the impermeable surface area of the site. By locating the addition where we are actually covering a portion of the existing driveway. The addition as a footprint is 556 square feet. 306 square feet of that is located on the existing driveway. Therefore, we are only increasing the impermeable surface area by 250 square feet. As well, we are not altering the existing slope of the property. That slope is and has been in existence for the life of the property and the life of the house as it has been in existence. The soil type is BND along the north and east portions of the property. The This soil classification is present along the north and the east side of the site, as well as it is the soil classification of the property to the north.
Can I stop you for a moment, Ms. Greenspoon, just for my clarification?
Absolutely.
This soil information, is this part of the packet that has been submitted?
It is not, but it is.
Where is this? What is the source?
Is Washtenaw County. Washtenaw County eWashtenaw website.
Specifically what?
Why am I talking about soil type?
No. Specifically, where would be able to find this information?
Oh,
it's not in front of us. It's not in front of us. So
I understand. If you go on eWashtenaw website and look at basically the map of Scio Township, and it enables you to turn on certain layers within the map function, you will find that you can turn on the soil type layer properties of Washtenaw County, of the entire county.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. That's fine. The D of B and D refers to the slope of the site, which is a 5 to 9% slope. The BN portion of the classification is Bernardston, Manlius, Nassau complex soil. It's a series of 3 different soils, all of which are very deep, well-drained soils that can vary from level to very steeply sloped. I would like to point out something quite critical here. By rights, we could build a tandem garage that is much longer and taller than we have proposed. We felt that keeping the footprint as compact as possible and keeping the length of the addition, which is 24 feet along the north side, as short as possible, we felt that that would have the least impact on the site. It creates the most efficient footprint area in terms of exterior wall that is built, and it would have the least impact on the site to the north, which is the most impacted neighbor in this application. We have also reduced the roof of the addition, reduced the roof height of the addition such that the office space is partially tucked under the roof so that the addition only looks like a 1.5-story building rather than a 2-story building. By rights, we could build a 35-foot tall building. We have not done that. We have kept it low in order to reduce the impact of the shadow cast on the northern property. We feel the compactness of the addition is the most favorable footprint for all parties involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else to speak for the petitioner? All right. Excuse me, they haven't given me enough room in my kitchen to lay out all of these things. All right. Are there any members of the CBA who want to report on any site inspection and conversations with the petitioner? I'll start out by saying that I did drive by the property and look at it from the road last week. I had no conversations with the petitioner. Anyone else on the board? Ms. Culbertson?
I visited the site and I went up both driveways a ways. I did not encounter anyone nor speak with anyone.
You?
I
Who else? Mr. Shields? Oh, Ms. Ramey, you had your hand up.
Yes, I also visited the site, drove up the driveway and looked at it. I did not get out of the car. I did not talk to anybody.
Thank you. Mr. Shields,
Same.
Mr. Walsh.
The same thing as everyone else, except I parked at the end of the road and walked around a bit.
All right, thank you. At this point, are there any members of the public who support the petitioner and wish to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone? Okay, there is some correspondence which is part of the packet, should be part of the record. I'll briefly make a comment on it. Doggone it, you never can find it when you want to. Do any of Ms. Ramey, do you happen to have those comments from the other people in support of this petition?
Yes.
Could you read them into the record, please?
Sure. There is a letter dated June 1st, 2021 from Maria and Patrick Smith to the members of the zoning board regarding variance 21002. I would like to let the board know that my husband and I have no objections to the proposed structure of our next door neighbor, Alexander Weinstein, which would require a variance in the length of setback in his yard. Our neighbor has utilized the services of an architect to ensure the structure will blend with the existing style of his home and is complying with regulations to that end. Improvement to homes in our neighborhood is a benefit for everyone. Thank you. And it's signed Marla and Patrick Smith, 541 Lakeview Avenue, telephone 734-548-0695.
Thank you. I found mine, but if you continue on, you're doing a great job.
Okay. There is also a letter from L. Stafford, Linda Stafford, 524 Lakeview Avenue in Scio Township.
Just one correction. I think that's an email, Diana.
Right, that's right, an email. To the Francis Zuma regarding the proposed garage building at 523 Lakeview Avenue. And it says, hello, I'm writing to say that my spouse, Joachim Joe Domeyer, and I have previously discussed the proposed new garage building at 523 Lakeview Avenue in Scio Township with the homeowner Alexander Weinstein. Joe and I own the home at 524 Lakeview Avenue, directly across the street from 523. Joe and I have no objections at all to the proposed building at 523 Lakeview or its proposed location, and we support Alexander in his interest in erecting a garage for his home. I'm certain that it will be attractive and well suited to match with the site and the existing construction of the home. And indeed, with our Michigan winters, everyone can benefit.
Whoops. We have a freeze frame here. I think I can finish up. Oh, Diana, you freeze framed right at when you were talking about Michigan winters. Could you continue?
Okay. And indeed, with our Michigan winters, everyone can benefit from having a good garage. I should note, though, that Joe and I are aware of another homeowner's strong concerns about the project. Ms. Carol Furtado at 505 Lakeview Avenue owns the parcel directly adjacent and to the north of 523. We are lucky to have good neighbors on Lakeview Avenue, very good neighbors all. And because Alexander and Carol are the two homeowning parties most affected in this instance, we hope that an amicable resolution can be achieved that is fair to both of them. Thank you, and that's signed by Linda Stafford.
And her address is 524 Lakeview.
That's right.
Includes her email address and phone number as well. The last one we have, and Ms. Ramey, I'll finish up with this one because this one I'm not sure of the identification. We did receive a copy of an email that was sent from Stephanie Flood, identifying herself as a associate broker for Howard Hanna Real Estate Services, with an address on West Stadium in Ann Arbor, dated June 7, 2021, to Francis Zuma, who is part of the Scio Township staff, relating to the address of the Weinsteins. And it says, "Dear Fran, I understand from one of my neighbors that the owner of 523 Lakeview Avenue is planning a project to add a garage to his home. I would like to go on record as being in support of this addition, especially as I understand he is working with an architect to be sure that the project will not negatively impact his adjacent neighbor or the neighborhood itself. As both a resident of the street for 23 years and a realtor, I love the eclectic charm of our street, which can't be harmed in any way by the addition of a garage. Please don't hesitate to reach out if I can be of any help in any way in furthering this project. Sincerely, Stephanie." And that contains an email address, a website, a logo, and legal language, which I've seen way too many times about the transmission of email addresses. But in any event, the problem I have with this one is that I do not have an identification of Ms. Flood as a property owner of any particular address. Ms. Staying specifically to this issue,
Yes.
Go ahead. I'll let you speak.
Okay. Ms. Greenspoon, we can probably stipulate that this woman who wrote this note is a resident of Lakeview Avenue. She has a property and a home on the street.
I don't know, but I think it's easy to discover where she lives by a simple property search.
Okay, Mr. Boylan, thank you. I appreciate it.
We can see.
Mr. Boylan,
it's not a problem.
Thank you. I think she's although identified in several places as a broker or realtor for a well-known real estate company, it does sound as if she is a actual homeowner on the street, and we'll accept it as such. All right. At this stage, are there any members of the public who oppose the petitioner and desire to speak in that regard? And I'll note that, all right, Mr. Boylan, you'll be first, Ms. Furtado after that. And Ms. Furtado, we do have all of your submissions, and it would take us all night to read them all, with your understanding that they are part of the record. And I don't think they need to be read in detail, what you have. We'll cover the important points. So without further ado, Mr. Boylan, would you like to go ahead and speak in opposition to this request?
We've planned that Ms. Furtado has a short statement to read. She's very nervous, but wants to say something on the record. It's very short.
No need to be nervous here. We follow the rules, but we're pretty informal.
Okay. Carol, will you turn your mute button on, and then you can give your statement, okay? There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Speak up, though. Speak up. We've got a little gesture here, so if you just get a little bit closer to your computer, it'd probably be fine.
And just tell me if you stop being able to hear me.
I can hear you fine now. Oh, wait a minute. Mr. Shields saying he needs you to speak up a little bit more. So can you use your stadium voice?
Okay. Good evening. board members, and others in attendance. My name is Carol Furtado. I am nervous about speaking to you tonight. I have prepared a statement which I would like to read to you. I have owned 505 Lakeview for the last 22 years. I have lived alone at 505 Lakeview since the death of my partner 14 years ago. I moved to Lakeview from denser housing in Ann Arbor in large part because of the separation of houses here. I have made many improvements to the building and extensive planning to the ground over that period. My property is immediately next to the location of the requested variance. I am a proud Michigan graduate and have been a fabric artist my entire adult life, but I'm not familiar with the rules for setbacks and variances. Because I have only known about this hearing or the variance for the past 2 weeks, I have not had time to fully understand the issues or the terminology. That is why I have asked Mr. Boylan to help me. I think I understand why my neighbor wants to build in the location that is in the application, but I do not agree with the reasons given. This location could not be worse for its impact on my property or me. If he builds a garage/office 21 feet tall on top of that hill, it will loom over my property and me. I think the minimum setback of 15 feet in our neighborhood is a good minimum distance. We should not be building on top of each other. I never imagined my neighbor might want to build a huge garage with a huge office right next to my property. He has never mentioned it to me. I have read submissions stating that he has talked to me about this previously. That is simply not true. There is at least 3 locations he can build a connected garage without being so close to the property line. He also has a large yard for a freestanding garage. There is no reason for the variance to be granted, and I ask you to deny it. Mr. Boylan will address more technical issues on my behalf. Thank you for listening to my statement.
Thank you, Ms. Furtado. Mr. Boylan, do you have something further?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
And the first issue I'd like to address, which will come in my talk, is the oral submission of soils information of a general character in the testimony. No soils information was presented with the application, and I don't think it's appropriate to start introducing soils information now, but I will not object to its introduction. My name is Michael Boylan. I am an attorney in the practice of law and in good standing in the state of Michigan, although I am semi-retired. I am also a friend of Ms. Furtado's and have been at her property many times. My practice has included dispute resolution and land use disputes, development and construction, and that includes the prevention and the aftermath of erosion, hillside cut and fill, and landslides. I have not been involved in setback variation applications, and I have only known about these issues for the past 2 weeks. If I use improper language, please take into consideration that I've had to try and read the code and understand it in a very short period of time. The setback regulations of Scio Township seem to me to be eminently sensible, and for the reason that they prevent the encroachment of buildings onto the peaceable use of adjacent property. If fences make good neighbors, then setback requirements do as well. As Ms. Furtado has mentioned, the impact of the, excuse me. Our packets, the packet that I prepared with Ms. Furtado and which you have in front of you, has several exhibits, I think 10 in total. I would like to make reference to some of them tonight. Okay, and I'm going to show you the exhibits so that you know what I'm talking about. The first one is the topographical map, Exhibit 1, okay? And I have highlighted here for you where Mr. Weinstein's property is located. The next is Exhibit 2, which shows the hillside immediately below the location, proposed location of this garage and office. There is a red stake marked in the exhibit that you can see very clearly. That is the property line. So you can see that the property line itself is on a hillside. You can also see some evidence of the erosion which has occurred when mulch has been placed up on Mr. Weinstein's property, but the erosion that we already have coming from stormwater has displaced it down the hillside. Exhibit 3 is a photograph of the same area and shows a little bit of the slumping that started down here from the erosion process. The fourth exhibit is a picture of the existing driveway and actually the site on which the proposed structure is intended to be placed. You will notice, because it's been raining, and you look at these photos, where the drainage is going already. It's going onto Ms. Furtado's property. Comes down the driveway and drains downhill to the north towards her property. The fifth exhibit, Exhibit 5, is a photograph of the front of the structure of the existing house. And it shows the topography of the land, the natural topography, and how this house has been built into the hillside. That is to say, there was an excavation to place this house where it is today. You cannot see it, but right here, there is already a parking pad, an existing parking pad, which the neighbor uses to park vehicles. Exhibit 6 is a view from the back of the property towards the house. And it shows the available land for a detached garage. It also shows the natural topography of the land. I may make reference to the elevation which was provided by the architect and shows the height here. And I want you to note, it's not very clear on the copy I got, but this height to the point of the eave here is 17 feet. That does not include the distance to the actual peak. If you just use an ordinary scale, it looks like there's another 5 feet to the peak for a total of 21 feet. This structure is going to be on top of a hillside that has a 5-foot drop off and right on the hillside. The last exhibit is Exhibit 8, which is the certified survey which was presented with the application. I'm going to use this certified survey to comment upon other areas where a garage could be located without violating the setback. So those are the, and I'm sorry, I missed Exhibit 1. It's the topographical map, and it shows a overhead view of, bear with me, I'll find it. Here it is. Okay, so we've downloaded from and submitted with our package the topographical map of Washtenaw County.
And there I am. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Let me interrupt you, Mr. Boylan, and I apologize for this, but along the way, I have lost my internet connection, and I'm going to have to ask you to repeat or summarize, if you don't mind, the last approximately 2 minutes of what you were saying.
Certainly. Rather than go through the exhibits again, I will be using them in my presentation. I just wanted to identify the ones we're going to use. We're going to use exhibits 1 through 6 and exhibit 8.
That's fine.
Okay?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So the first issue is it impossible for a garage of the dimensions proposed with an office above it to be built anywhere else on the property? And the answer is no. There are 4 options. And if you look at Exhibit 8, you will see that I have described to you the locations on which they could be built. If you see Exhibit A, this is the house, the road's out here, immediately behind the house and connected to the house. An attached garage would fit there just fine. It would require some excavation, it's true. But there's already been excavation into that hillside for the house itself. Far more excavation than would be required to put this structure that's proposed, and it would be nowhere near the setback line and would not loom over the property. The second location is location B, and that's in the front of the house where there's already an existing pad and an excavation right here. All they'd have to do is bench into the hill here, and they'd have a perfectly suitable place that would not be looming over the property. Okay? Location C in the back is the area for a detached garage. Okay? There's plenty of room in the back lot for a detached garage. Mr. Weinstein wants an attached garage, but his preference for an attached garage does not supersede the need to not build on top of his neighbors and request a variance. Finally, to a lesser extent, he could build it in the front on the other side. We require some excavation, but if you scale the map and scale the size of the proposed site, it'll fit here without in any way interfering with the setback requirement. So that's the first issue. The second issue is identified on Exhibit 1, okay? And that's the topographical map. And I'm not going to be able to show you on the screen, so I ask you to look at the topographical map. And you'll notice that the steepest part along the property line between Ms. Furtado's structure over here is right along this property line. This is the steepest portion right here. Now, if you look at the other topography, it appears to me clear that the excavated material used to locate the primary residence has been used as fill to create the flat space where the proposed garage is to be located. I may not be right, and I'm not an expert, but they either had it carted away or that was a naturally flat location that just happened to bench in. I don't believe it's so if you look at the profile. My point is not that I know that it's fill. My point is that there have been no core samples taken of the soils. With all due respect to Ms. Greenspoon, remarking on the general makeup of the soils in this area does not answer the question, what's underneath the location where they propose on a hillside, adjacent to a hillside, to construct a garage. I don't believe that there is that any type of setback variance is needed because there are alternatives. But if they propose to put it on that location with the chance that it's fill without doing core samples, I don't think you can allow a variance without having both the core samples and a report from a certified soils specialist. And those are the 2 points. This is not the right place to put this from a geological point of view. There are options of excavating on the existing property away from this location that will not interfere with Ms. Furtado's enjoyment of her property. And it is therefore my request to you that the application be denied at tonight's meeting, or if it is not denied, that the application be continued until the soils cores have been taken and the proper evidence about what soils are underneath the location for the proposed structure are identified to the panel and to Ms. Furtado so that they can make further reaction and objections. I wanted to address briefly the letters of support from the supporting neighbors, all of whom are good neighbors. And I have interacted with Mr. Weinstein, and I think he's a nice man. And I hope he gets a garage in a location that is not sitting right on top of Ms. Furtado's property. But as for the other neighbors, they all submitted their letters before they had a chance to review the materials that we have submitted in opposition. And they all are located very far away from any effects that this garage will have. The only person that's really going to be affected is Ms. Furtado. So I asked the board to take that in consideration in the letters of support. If there are any other questions that you have, I'd be willing to answer them, but that concludes my presentation, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Boylan. Are there any other persons wishing to speak in opposition to this variance request? Anyone at all? I don't see anybody who has changed their mute buttons, and I don't see anybody indicating that they wish to speak. So at this point, I'll allow the petitioner rebuttal. And I'm not going to place a limit on it at this point, but keep in mind that you know, we have gotten into this quite a bit, and we've read quite a bit of material. Before I forget, though, because I was not present when my internet connection went out, I don't know 100% what Mr. Boylan says. I do want to read in. We have for documents. I'll do that very quickly. We have a certified survey dated March 29, 2021 from PIAT Land Service, PIATT Land Surveying. We have the emails and letters which we've already written into the record. We have a document that is entitled Objection of Adjacent Property Owner Carol Furtado, Request for Denial or Continuance of Application. We have, and I don't know whether it's all one document, but we'll go through it very quickly. Well, I guess it is numbered at the bottom. We have a second page entitled Factual Background. We have a third page, which in the middle of it indicates objections to proposed variance. And then we have a conclusion page. We also have an index of attached exhibits, which are numbered 1 through 8, including the topographical map, which Mr. Boylan indicated, the Furtado hillside photographs, hillside drainage erosion photograph, driveway photograph of the property at 523 Lakeview, a photo of the same address, actually 2 of them, and then 523 Lakeview floor plans, and of 523 Lakeview lot survey. And then we have a second index of attached exhibits, and then the exhibits themselves. I think that's pretty much it. Is there, Mr. Boylan, I will ask you, have I left out anything, or is that all the exhibits?
No, and we ask that you make them part of the record.
They are. They are.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any persons desiring to, on behalf of the petitioner, offer a rebuttal? Ms. Greenspoon, Mr. Weinstein, you're both muted, so Ms. Greenspoon, you're not. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to answer some questions, hopefully, and clarify some things. So in terms of the purpose of setbacks between houses, they serve multiple purposes. One of them is to keep houses far enough apart such that if a fire in one house starts, then the house adjacent to it will not be close enough that it too catches on fire. Other purposes of setbacks include light and air, and we acknowledge these things. And that is one of the main reasons why we have made this footprint of this garage addition as small as possible. We have, I hate to acknowledge this, and I hate to bring this up, we have by rights the ability to build within the setback, the existing 15-foot setback, a 105-foot long addition by rights. We could, per the zoning ordinance and the existing setbacks, we don't want to build anything that big, but we could, by rights, build something that's 105 feet long from
Ms.
the front
Greenspoon,
to the back.
Ms.
Yes.
Greenspoon, not to interrupt you on this particular point, but are you trying to say that you could put on such a large addition and meet all of the other requirements in an R2, including the size?
Have not calculated that.
then I would please refrain from making such a statement without some support.
I understand. Okay. Let me go on to another point. The soil information was provided because as a response to the points that Mr. Boylan had made, asking about soil composition. I didn't realize he was looking for soil borings, which we would normally do on a commercial project in order to determine soil bearing capacity. When we design footings, we assume a very low soil bearing capacity. We design footings with a 1,500 to 2,000 PSF soil bearing capacity, and that assumes that, and that's the main reason why we do soil borings, to look at the composition. But normally that sort of information is not required as a variance. It's kind of beyond the purview of the ZBA. I would like to question the stake that was located. You had pointed out that there's a red stake on the property line, and I don't know who had located that. I just am curious. I don't recall seeing it.
Mr. Boylan, do you have Mr. Boylan, do you have a very brief response?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The stakes were laid out by the surveyor when he did the survey.
Okay.
That's
That's
the property line.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Boylan.
Thank you.
Ms. Greenspoon, go ahead.
The height of the building is where that height is measured is dictated by the ordinance. It is to the midpoint of a sloped roof. And we are well within the ordinance. We are not asking for a variance of the height limit. I will say that. It is very difficult for us to put in terms of the drawing that you showed that had other locations for the garage, on the south side of the house, if the garage were the same footprint, we would be here requesting a variance on the south side because the house location to the south property is actually closer than it is to the northern property. So we would need a variance if we located the house on the south side. If we located it in the backyard, the septic field that's located in the backyard, Scio Township requires a septic and a spare field. In case that septic field, for whatever reason, fails, you need to have.
Okay, I want to get a clarification of that. Ms. Krebs, are you here? Is there a requirement for a spare septic field?
That's from the Washtenaw County Health Department. It's not Scio Township. We don't have
Oh.
health, but yes, there is. Yes, there is.
No kidding. Well, you learn something new every day. All right, Ms. Greenspoon, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. Washtenaw County Health Department requires space for a spare field, and we cannot encroach on that. We cannot build in that space. I think I have. Oh, and in terms of providing a detached garage, if it were to be on the northeast corner of the site, as I had stated in my opening statement, that would require a longer driveway, which would mean more impervious surface. And we are trying at all costs to avoid an increase in impervious surface. Thank you. I hope I got everything. I'm not sure if Alexander wants to respond as well.
That's right. Thank you, Ms. Greenspoon. I have a couple of questions while we're still in the public hearing portion. Well, let's go to this now. Ms. Krebs, I have a couple of questions, clarification questions. Number one, this is a legal non-conforming lot. Would this be considered just the addition of a garage itself? Would that be considered an expansion of the non-conformity?
No, the home is not, the structure is not a non-conforming structure, just the lot.
Okay.
So the structure on this lot conforms right now to all of the standards of the ordinance.
Okay. Mr. Boylan brought up a question of possibly putting a garage in the front yard. Is a garage in the front yard permitted in an R2 district?
As long as it meets the setback. I can tell you what the front setback is in the R2 district. Give me 1 second.
All right.
The front required setback is 35 feet.
From the road?
The property line or right of way.
Okay. All right. All right. At this point, I'll open up.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me.
Yeah, Ms. Culberson.
I believe Mr. Weinstein wanted to make a statement right before you had some questions.
Okay, very good. Mr. Weinstein, go ahead. I apologize if I cut you off.
No problem. Thank you so much. Just want to say thank you for considering the garage and the addition. The placement of it, we've made that placement to try to be as considerate of the requirements that we have right now, as well as of the neighbor. I won't restate the points that Bonnie Greenspoon has made, but the proposal that it be moved to the front of the yard would include putting a driveway right past our front, where the front doors are right now to the building. And so, as well as all of the other reasons. So this seemed to, in order to have a attached garage and also simply to have the hardships of not having a garage, is why we are applying for this. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, let me open up. Ms. Culbertson, go ahead. Is that what all you were trying to say, is to draw my attention to my inattention? All right. Well, let me open up the floor to any of the ZBA members who have any questions of the petitioner or of any of Mr. Furtado or anyone else. Who would like to ask questions? Ms. Ramey, you're not muted.
Yeah, I have a couple. For Ms. Greenspoon, is it possible, I understand maybe not desirable, but is it possible to build an addition of the size that you're proposing anywhere on the property that does meet the setback? Is that a possibility?
We hadn't looked.
Well,
We hadn't considered it, so I could not say right now.
Okay. You'd pointed out that the alternates that were suggested by Mr. Boyle, and one of them would interfere with possibly with a front setback. One of them might interfere with an alternate drain field.
Yes.
And then the other suggestions as to possible alternates, as I understood it, you were saying it would be undesirable because they would increase the amount of runoff and impermeable material. But is that the only reason that you would reject those?
Aside from not having an attached garage?
so so the desire really is to have an attached garage, not a detached. That's a desire
Right.
on the part of Mr. Weinstein.
So is there any possibility of having an attached garage on somewhere on the northeast side of the building, even if that meant a longer driveway?
We had looked at a configuration that was kind of a T shape of a garage within the 15-foot setback, or outside of the 15-foot setback. It created like a tandem garage. You know what tandem garage is? It would be like a T. It just increased the footprint and would increase the driveway area.
Right. Okay.
In order
And
to be attached.
is it possible, are there materials that you can make a driveway of that are permeable?
Yes. Yes.
So what kind? Okay.
Oh, I don't know what they are offhand, but there are
But
permeable.
such things do exist?
Yes. I wouldn't say that it has a permeability that might be sort of 50% of what a fully paved driveway would be. I'm not saying that it's like driving on grass. I'm saying it gets you there, but doesn't quite get you there.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you cannot create a completely impermeable driveway out of other materials a permeable driveway out of other materials. There are certain degrees of permeability.
Okay, thanks. Those are my questions.
Thanks, Ms. Ramey. Ms. Culbertson, do you have any questions?
I do, thank you. A question, Mr. Weinstein, how long have you owned the property?
3.5 years.
Thank you. And are you on a well, or do you have municipal water?
I'm on a well.
And I wanted to ask more specifically, what other alternatives did you explore that would fit into the setback when you were looking at design alternatives?
So we explored the backyard, the idea of creating a longer driveway and then creating a backyard. That increased both the footprint as well as needing then to put in a staircase. That would increase the footprint and the longer driveway, which both has the issue of the impermeable but also the not being able to have a attached garage. And part of that is to try to deal with the winters and ability to drive. And both of us work as teachers, and so extending the driveway also would create another hardship. We looked at the tandem, this idea that you would have two garages, so one coming in this way, and then another where you drove around and created this kind of strange alternative, but like you would have two garages this way. That was a very bizarre setup, as well as not necessarily a usable one because of the sharp turn that would be required to get into the side of the house. It would also block, presently the side of the house and create a much larger shadow on Carol's backyard, which we were looking to avoid. We looked at a tandem, which could go further back, but that would really intrude on the visual of Carol's backyard because it would.
Carol is Ms. Furtada, is that correct?
Right.
Have you ever discussed this with her?
Yes, during the winter, I spoke to her about that I was building a garage and wanting to build a garage. And we talked briefly about that. This was during the pandemic. During the, we had a lot of discussions because of the lake issue that was happening with Gelman. We were talking about the Gelman issue, and during that time.
I'm sorry. First of all, I interrupted Ms. Culbertson, and I apologize. I'll get right back. Second of all, Mr. Weinstein, we're going far afield here.
Yeah. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
I was asking whether you had ever discussed the problem with the setback with Ms. Furtado.
Not the setback in particular.
You ever discussed with her any of her concerns of building this attached garage with her at all?
I have not, but during the times when I spoke with her, she did not tell me that there was concerns. I did reach out by email to ask if she had any concerns because I had heard that she had concerns and if she wanted to discuss them with me, but I did not get a response.
Ms. Culbertson, go ahead.
Okay. Those were the questions that I had. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Very good. Mr. Walsh, do you have any questions?
One in particular that's coming across. Is there a time constraint on this project? The only reason I'm asking is it seems that there's a fair amount of communication that could happen between the neighbors that might resolve some of this unless there's a firm date that construction has to start by.
We would, may I respond to that?
Sure.
Yep.
We would like to have the construction done before the winter for the reasons of wanting it. And it seems like it's going to probably take a 3-month project. And so ideally beginning as soon as possible into the summer to avoid the winter's snows and the hardships.
Anything else, Mr. Walsh?
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Shields, do you have any questions of anyone here? Mr. Shields, you are on mute. You're still on mute.
There we go. All right. I have 2 questions. One solution potentially is a 1-car garage. Have you thought about that? No. Bob says no.
No, but who are you asking this of, Mr. Shields?
I'm asking the applicants, yes.
Yeah. Mr. Weinstein?
We had considered a 1-car garage, but there's 2, my wife and I both drive and need to transport in the mornings because of our teaching jobs. And so it would create a hardship to do a 1-car.
And then have you considered any mitigation that could be done to prevent the wash down the hill?
Yes, we have. And maybe Bonnie Greenspoon can speak to that. The architect can speak to that more directly. about the mitigation?
Ms. Greenspoon?
Yes. At the very least, the addition will have gutters and downspouts, and at that point we can direct the water down the hill of the driveway and away from the property to the north. There are other mitigation issues that can be addressed. I would have to look at, there are other ways to mitigate. I would have to look at the topography to see if we could locate some sort of detention space immediately behind the garage, just to the east, and we could create a detention space in that area, take rainfall from the roof of the garage and direct it in that area as well.
Thank you.
That's it? All right. I have some questions. Ms. Furtado, you hand up and wanted to speak on the issue of whether Mr. Weinstein had discussed this project with you. You are on mute.
His email to me was 2 days ago when he would have read the documents.
Okay. Other than that, has there been any other discussions of this project with you or your concerns?
There has not been discussion. The last time I asked him if he was planning a garage, he said he didn't know. And he never mentioned the big structure on top of the garage. Never. At one point, never said a word about it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I have a question for either Ms. Greenspoon or Mr. Weinstein, just a straight up question, because I'm seeing a little edgy on this. Could this garage go in the backyard with the extension of the driveway and meet the setbacks? Could it be done? Yes or no?
Yes, it probably could be. It might require removing more trees in order to locate it there.
Well, okay, very good.
May I respond to that?
Yes. Okay.
I believe it would also still require a request of the variance on the side closest to Ms. Furtado's in order to avoid the drainage field.
I'm sorry, say that again, please. I didn't quite understand.
That the same distance that we're presently requesting would come into play again in the backyard.
Why is that?
Because to move it further, that direction would start to get into the drainage field.
In what direction?
I'm sorry,
further east.
Yeah, thank you.
The drain field's in the southeast corner of your property, right?
We have to account for this a spare field as well.
Right, spare field would probably be able to go directly to the north of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
But we just haven't documented the space. We haven't documented. So my initial response is saying yes, it's possible without actually doing a measured drawing.
I understand that, but you're the one who's coming here today and asking for a variance. And it is the responsibility of the person seeking the variance to present the appropriate proof, including with the obvious concern of whether it could be placed somewhere else on the property and meet the setback requirements.
My initial gut reaction is to say yes, but without actually doing measure drawings.
So
I could not say 100%. I could not say 100% yes.
Is it fair to say that no attempt has been made to try to put this project in an area in the backyard which would meet the setback requirements?
It was considered, and it was.
Has there been any effort done to?
No, because we just didn't think it was a reasonable location, given the increase in impermeable space.
And if I may say also the wish for an attached garage.
Well, yeah, I understand, Mr. Wine. I really do understand that desire, and I appreciate that. Do any of the other members of the board have any other questions for the applicant or anyone else? Okay, well, seeing none, I would solicit a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Walsh, supported by who? Was that you, Ms. Ramey? Ms. Culbertson, supported by Ms. Culbertson to close the public hearing. Mr. Walsh, would you be so kind as to call the roll?
Hoff,
Yes.
Culbertson,
Yes.
Ramey. You're on mute.
Yes.
Walsh, yes. Shields.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing is closed. At this stage, the ZBA will deliberate upon the request and decide any issues which need to be made. Anybody have any initial discussion items? I have a few. But if anyone else has one to start, I'd be happy to do that. In which case, I will start. The way that I look at this is that, first of all, these are smaller lots, which to me means that the setback requirements are almost more important. Perhaps that's not a terrific way of saying it, but perhaps it's more important to make sure that setbacks are met when an attempt is made to put an addition like this in. And it's not necessarily, although Ms. Greenspoon's comment about fires is well taken, I guess. I never thought about it. But what I had thought about is the idea that one really shouldn't be going beyond the setbacks because there are neighbors involved who may be affected. The setbacks in an R2 district in Scio Township are really minimal, in my personal opinion. And there should be a decent reason for allowing a setback change. So, and I don't see any exceptional or extraordinary conditions or circumstances that would apply to these properties in this zoning district. They're really all basically a little smaller than would be allowed today. So, and the fact that there's a desire for a two-car garage rather than a one-car garage, I completely understand. However, I really don't think that that's the sort of thing that should affect a neighbor to the neighbor's disadvantage. And although I do think that there's always a possibility of making some sort of agreement to make everyone happy, I don't see that has been done in this case. So I have to look at it as pretty much a situation where there has been no discussion between the neighbors about trying to work out any differences. And I don't pretend to say that has to be done. It just, I noted in passing. I don't believe that the variance requested here deals with a substantial property right possessed by other properties in the same zone. There are other garages, but they're not all attached, and they're not all two garages with an addition on top. There may be one or two that I am unaware of, but and then in general, I'm not sure that that having a two-car garage is a substantial property right. In any event, to the extent that the variance request arises from circumstances or conditions which resulted from the applicant or predecessor in title, I think that the desire to have a two-car garage and putting in a space most advantageous to the desires of the applicant is not an appropriate way around the idea that it's really just the actions of the applicant who are which is causing this request for a variance. That's my thoughts in general. Anyone else have anything to say? Ms. Culbertson?
I just want to say that I do appreciate the compactness and the simplicity of the design. I think you've done a good job in solving all of the issues except the one around the setback. And I think in this particular case, I do agree with Mr. Oth in that I don't think it is a substantial property right. And I do think that, yes, there could be, solutions within the setback. I'm not sure they would be quite as simple a solution and as tight a solution. But in this case, I think the setback should remain as it is.
Any other members have anything they wish to say at this point? Mr. Shields?
I agree with what both Tom and Jan said. I'd like to add a couple of things. As I kept reading the packet, I kept coming back to Linda Stafford's comment that we hope that amicable resolution can be achieved that is fair to both of them and keeps the neighborhood happy. And I hope that at some point in time you can come to look at some ways to mitigate the erosion on the hill if there is a decision to go forward.
Well, with all due respect, and I appreciate exactly what you're saying, and I don't disagree on a general basis with you, obviously, but
not our business.
It's kind of not our business.
I understand.
At this point, we are faced with having to deal with the facts as they have been brought to us. And although you could always say, gee, I wish it could all be worked out, that's really not an option for us when it comes to this stage, I don't think. Bob?
I disagree, Mr. Chairman. We have three choices. We can agree with the variance, we can deny it, or we can table it.
Well, yeah, but that's not what Mr. Shields was referring to, and that's the idea of working it out. I'm sorry.
I think he was sort of circling around, and then the drain eventually was going to be, is there an amicable solution? It doesn't sound like from the discussion we've had tonight that all the pros and cons of the various designs have been laid out. I'm with everyone else at the moment saying, given what's been presented, I can't see a reason to grant the variance. It doesn't take a lot, though, to envision something the neighbor is going to like less. And maybe this is a time to sit down and discuss it out rather than having us reach a decision.
Can I comment, though? I think
Absolutely.
that the fact that there's a neighbor's objection to this proposal maybe makes our decision easier in the sense that it encourages us to reject the proposal more than we might otherwise. But I don't see how, even if all the neighbors came in and they had all shook hands on it and said, we're happy with this encroachment and we don't mind that there's a setback encroachment, even then, I'm not sure that we as a board would have the power to say, well, since you guys are all in agreement, that's fine. I think the statute or the ordinance is pretty clear. And in a case like that, the circumstance that seems to be arising that causes the request for a variance is the homeowner's desire to build a particular size structure in a particular place. It's not any immutable other fact of life beyond their control. And the fact that that's the case and that there are alternatives apparently, I think sort of ties our hands. I think we need to reject this just because there's not a valid grounds for it, regardless of the fact that there's been an objection. So I guess I wouldn't want is it Weinstein or Weinstein?
It is Weinstein.
Weinstein, okay, I'm sorry, I had that wrong before. I wouldn't want Mr. Weinstein to walk away thinking that if this project, if this is denied, that it's his neighbor's fault. I think that we have to make an independent judgment.
Yeah. Well, I think especially your last point, Ms. Ramey, is exactly correct. And your other point that if for example, under other circumstances, all the neighbors came up and said, hey, this is okay with all of us, we're still under an obligation to take a look at the whole thing, and you're still stuck with the same issues, whether everyone does agree. And occasionally, I think we have had that in the past, or something close to it. And Mr. Walsh, I hope that we're not misinterpreting what you were trying to say, because I think maybe we were a little bit.
No, those are fair comments. My only consideration was there were concerns about the topography and the runoff, that if a design included erosion mitigation that wasn't necessarily there at the moment, it might be in the best interests of the neighborhood and all to consider this. But again, we need something more than just, I want to build into the setback, to even consider giving a reason for the variance.
Okay. Well, what you just said, I agree with. So there you have it. So I guess I would solicit a motion from someone. I know this is the toughest part of every hearing we've ever had.
Nobody's stepping up.
Well, I can't do it, so I'll refrain from it. I think under Robert's rules, the chairperson is not allowed to make a motion, although he or her is allowed to suggest revisions once a motion is made. And I'll stick with that for other reasons as well. So, Mr. Shields, Ms. Culbertson, Mr. Walsh.
Sure, why not?
You're going to go ahead. Go ahead, Bob.
One of the, Bob, by the way, one of the reminders to you, which I think has not been completely honored 100% of the time in the past, although we've done pretty good on it. Under our rules of procedures, the motion must include a list of facts pertinent to the decision, structured as a finding of fact. And the way I interpret that is sort of a conclusion of the facts that are presented to us. Just to remind you, we've done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the extra help. All right, let's take a stab at this. In the matter of variance number 21002, Weinstein side yard setback variance, 523 Lakeview Avenue, for a 6-foot side yard setback rather than the required 15-foot yard in accordance with section 36-75 of the Scio Township Codified Zoning Ordinance to allow construction of a 2-story addition. The requested variance should not be granted due to the following findings of fact. 1, there are not exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes of use in the same district. That includes the width of the subject parcel not being, well, being non-conforming, but being typical to the Lakeview Avenue subdivision. The area of the subject parcel also being non-conforming to the Scio Township R2 code, but again, not necessarily different to the rest of the Lakeview Avenue lots. Also noting the topography of the subject parcel and the existing location of the septic facilities on the parcel. 2, the variance is not necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right possessed by the property in the same zone and vicinity. 3, that the granting of such variance or modification will be materially detrimental, not to the public welfare, but injurious to property improvements to the neighbor in the zone and of which this property is located. 4, the granting of variance will not adversely affect the purpose or objectives of the master plan of the township. And absent exceptional circumstances which would otherwise result in substantial injustice, the circumstances or conditions upon which the variance based do result from the actions of the applicant or his predecessors in title.
All right. Before going further, may I request two additions to your motion? The first one being in your recitation of facts, I think you said it's 2-story addition. And I'd ask that that be changed to a 2-car garage containing 2 stories.
Fair enough.
And second of all, the other request for a change in your motion is a description of the variance, a description of the substantial property right. I would ask that the phrase, because it is a 2-car garage, which is not a substantial property right, be added as well to your motion.
Agreed.
All right. All right. There's a motion made by Mr. Walsh to deny variance number 21002, application of Alexander Weinstein, 523 Lakeview Avenue, for variance to build a 2-car garage with home office space above it, partially within the side yard setback. The setback is 15 feet on the north side, and requesting to encroach 6 feet into the setback based upon the fact that there are no exceptional or extraordinary conditions or circumstances, that there's not a substantial property right, that the circumstances.
May I make one correction to my motion? I think when I read out, I said it was a 6-foot side yard setback. It was a 6-foot encroachment. The real number is 9-foot setback. That needs to be corrected in the motion.
Yeah, yes, and you can correct that, and it's appropriate. In any event, for the reasons stated, including for the reason that the circumstances or conditions are requested for a variance were based in part upon the actions of the applicant or predecessor in title. Motion made by Mr. Walsh. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Ramey. Any discussion? All right, Mr. Walsh.
I think there's one finding of fact that I don't know that we stated on the record, but I think should be stated, which is finding that it does appear that there are some available alternatives to construct a garage for the homeowner that do conform to the setback, or at least there's been no showing that it's impossible, and it does appear that there is a possibility.
All right, Mr. Wallace, do you accept that as an addition to your motion to be inserted in your initial listing of facts and findings of fact?
I do.
Okay. And Ms. Ramey, you were the second, and obviously you would second that motion as amended?
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion on that? All right, Mr. Walsh, would you call the roll?
Off.
Yes.
Culbertson.
Yes.
Ramey.
Yes.
Walsh, yes. Shields.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries, and the variance has been denied on a unanimous vote. So, moving along, next item on the agenda. And I note that the agenda also, or at least my binder, has some minutes that we've already voted upon, but that may just be a mistake in my binder.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to thank you. We were going to leave the meeting now. Thank you very much.
Goodbye. The next item of business is old business. Is there any old business? Anybody? All right, very good. Moving along, minutes. We have minutes of the May 20th, 2021 meeting. And I do have a couple of suggested changes. First of all, in the draft.
Were they sent to everyone? You and I got a draft copy.
I got a draft copy. Yeah, well, maybe it wasn't sent to everyone, because I think it was sent later. So, Ms. Culberson, Mr. Shields, you did not receive this?
No, I didn't.
Okay, well, in that case, that makes our job that much easier, because we're not going to deal with these. We are going to pass on these until next month. So would the record please reflect that we're going to consider the May 20th, 2021 meeting, because for the reason that not everyone got them. So I guess they were just sent to me and Bob. So I suppose we should have looked at them first and told Christy the other that we had gotten them. All right, moving along. And does everyone agree with that, by the way? I don't think a formal vote is required.
No, I think it would be good if we could make it a point to make sure we're prepared, just because we don't meet that often.
Oh, absolutely. No, I understand. And I agree. So let's put it off till the next meeting, and we'll take care of it then. All right, the next item of business is other business, including reports, including any planning commission liaison updates. Gee whiz, who is that? Ms. Culp.
Yeah.
What's going on? Tell us what's going on in the planning commission.
Yeah, so just today, the master plan was distributed which starts our 63-day of public comment with the master plan, and that will be there. There'll be a link to that master plan, and what this is it's a master plan draft. It goes out to all the adjacent townships and different organizations, as well as will be on the website, and we'll collect additional information, and then have there'll be a public hearing before then it gets recommended by the planning commission to go to the trustees. The other thing that is happening is we have an advertisement out for the Environmental Sustainability Task Force. There are 2 interns that the township has hired to start doing some research and prepare for the work of the task force. And that there'll be an article in the newsletter. And I don't know if the ZBA got sent a copy of it, but I will make sure you do get one. We're looking for township residents that have some expertise around different areas of sustainability, waste management, energy, those types of things. This task force will probably will convene. My guess is probably at the beginning of August. So those are some things that are happening, and this is it will come up with an environmental kind of sustainability plan for the township, which includes operation and community outreach.
Very good. On the environmental sustainability issue, Jan, you know that, or perhaps you don't, Scio Township, along with I think 6 or 7 other municipalities or townships in the area, have banded together, so to speak, and have formed the Washtenaw Regional Resource Management Authority, called fondly WARMA. And we've actually been meeting I'm the delegate from Scio Township, and we've been meeting now for, gosh, a year and a half or so. I think in a couple of different aspects, Scio has forgotten about us. So I think
about you.
I think as far as the environmental, because you were talking about recycling, and I see WARMA as being, at the moment, certainly very involved in the recycling issues. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's for want of a better description, an audit of recycling bins, which is also going to be a subject of, I'm told, an article in the newsletter. But it's coming up actually sooner than that. It's going to begin it. So there will be people that have already been hired, I guess, through third-party contractors to peek into everyone's recycling just for a moment. It's not going to take very long. What they're really looking for is any obviously bad stuff in the recycling bins, and tag it and go on from there. That's being done through a grant from Eagle to an outfit called the Recycling Partnership, and they've hired the people to actually do the work. But and I can go into it in detail, but I don't want to bore anyone if they're not really interested. But as far as the environmental sustainability, will keep us in mind.
Great,
Because
I appreciate that.
It kind of goes hand in hand, at least partially. I think our charge also probably, I have to go back and take a look at the articles of incorporation. It may actually go to solid waste also, but we're really, WARMA is not really focused in on that right now. It's trying to tackle the recycling end of things.
Is the sustainability task force, are those volunteer positions?
They are, except for the interns who are supporting it and doing the research portion. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
At this point, and some equity issues may come up in that.
Just a comment on the recycling. As someone who volunteered for years at the township recycling, there is a strong need to educate people on what needs to be done for an item to be recycled.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Although
so much.
I was also down at the GFL Materials Resource Facility, what they call a MRF, and just the other day, and I was really a little bit amazed that over the cleanliness of a lot of that recycling that was being sampled at the time. So yeah, I like you. There's a lot of different things I had to learn as far as what can be recycled and what can't. But I think at the moment, my assumption is, at least, that they're really looking for the obviously improper stuff.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that'll come out of the both the master plan and the environmental sustainability task force are, additional recommendations for zoning changes, updates, etc. So Laura already has a list going. Yeah.
All right. Well, very good. Well, I appreciate the report, Jan. Anybody else have anything else before we wrap this up? Anyone? All right, very good. Well, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Seconded.
Moved by Ms. Ramey, seconded by Mr. Shields to adjourn. Mr. Walsh, would you call the roll?
Let me go backwards this time. Shields,
Yes.
Walsh, yes. Ramey,
Yes.
Culbertson,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, meeting is adjourned.
52.
One little last thing. Whose handwriting is this?
Recording stopped.
Anybody?
That would be mine.
Okay, I have your binder, although it has my name on it. And I took off your little tag, so someone's got mine, and
Probably me. Mine's downstairs.
no problems. It's not the biggest thing in the world. I was just kind of curious to see who it was.
Okay.
Well, then I imagine my handwriting to be.
Everybody, good.
Well, good night, all.
Laura, thanks for the great job. I appreciate
No
it.
problem.
Thank you.
Laura,
Good night, everybody. I'm going to end it for all.
Laura, is there
Bye-bye.
any agenda for next month? Yeah.
I don't believe there's anything.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.